You are born in 18th century Japan. You come from a long line of taikomochi, literally drum bearers, but culturally something much larger. A geisha, an elite entertainer. Geishas advise daimyos, perform refined dance and music, and act as witty conversational partners. In many ways, they were cultural consultants, jesters and artists rolled into one, and your family guards its history like a hen guards its eggs. The first thing you learn to recognize are not toys, but instruments. The lacquered drum your grandfather polishes every dawn, the shamisen case displayed like a relic, the inkstone he keeps wrapped in silk as if it were alive. Servants speak your family's art name with careful respect, the way others might recite a sutra. Your father was a taikomochi once. The only issue is he was never good at it. Your grandfather says your father never had the talent. So from the moment you can understand language, you already know who you are not supposed to become. You are told that your forefathers entertained daimyo in candlelit strategy rooms, easing tensions with poetry and wit, guiding conversations that shaped alliances. You are told that taikomochi is not a clown, but a confidant, a cultured man, a master of mood and timing. You sit on your grandfather's lap as he tells you how your great-great-grandfather once calmed an enraged daimyo with a perfectly timed poem. But even as a small child, you hear the soft tremor beneath these praises. The elders speak in lowered voices about new fashions, samurai households cutting expenses, and the shogunate tightening restrictions. You don't understand the words, only the fear. So by the time you turn 5, your childhood is framed by 2 truths you cannot escape. Your lineage is noble, and it is dying. At age 6, your childhood ends with the sound of a wooden clapper. Your grandfather wakes you before sunrise, dragging you from warm futons into cold tatami. He calls it shugyo, or aesthetic discipline. To you, it feels like military training disguised with fans and instruments. You learn your first lesson before breakfast. A taikomochi's body is his weapon, and every gesture must obey tradition. By age 8, you're drilled in zashiki banter, the rapid, elegant wit expected in elite salons. Your grandfather sits across from you in the dim morning light, demanding cleverness, timing, and restraint. When your jokes land flat, he shakes his head. When they succeed, he nods once, as if pride is a luxury he cannot afford to show. At age 10, storytelling takes over your evenings. You practice kodan, the art of reading historical battles with dramatic pauses and a fan. Your voice grows steady, your diction crisp as you recite until your throat burns. By age 12, your days are carved into disciplines. Morning, posture drills that leave your back trembling. Afternoon, shamisen rhythms repeated until your fingers blister. Evening, dance footwork on unforgiving floors until your heels split. Your grandfather's voice is constant. Again, again. A taikomochi cannot bleed in front of patrons, so you must bleed now. At age 14, mastery begins to show. You pour tea flawlessly, hold fans with aristocratic precision, read a room the way warriors read battlefields. You hate the confinement, the repetition, the life chosen for you. But the arts carve themselves into your bones. And so by age 15, you are no longer a child. You are a crafted instrument, polished, controlled, endlessly practiced, a perfect apprentice forged from a boy who never had the chance to be one. A few weeks after your 16th birthday, your training has its first spark of reward. A senior geisha, amused by your sharp timing, pulls you into a small local gathering in a tea house. You perform a brief bout of zashiki banter, salon comedy, and manage to silence a rowdy room with one perfectly timed pause. People blink, lean forward, laugh. For the first time, strangers recognize your presence. This then builds into an incident that changes everything. One day, a high-ranking magistrate, A government official who oversees law and order visits the tea house. Someone suggests that talented boy perform. You deliver a story with such control, such elegant phrasing, that he requests your presence at his private banquet the following week. That single invitation becomes patronage, the Edo equivalent of a modern sponsorship. Word spreads through the Hanamachi, the pleasure quarter districts where geisha arts are performed. You soon become the boy who can still a room. That night, your grandfather beams in a way you've never seen. Not just proud, vindicated. His own son lacked the talent or interest to continue the profession, and that failure haunted him in silence. But you, his grandson, are becoming exactly what the family once was. His posture changes. He walks lighter. And when people compliment you, he accepts it like medicine for an old wound. By age 20, rival male entertainers whisper your name with envy. Older taikomochi, nearly extinct, watch you with bittersweet admiration, proud you exist at all. Soon, your art becomes political. You learn how to flatter without fawning, how to pour sake in a way that suggests respect, but never servitude, how to transform a patron's complaint into a witty anecdote that saves face. By 25, your name appears regularly in Kinban, the official performance registries. Patrons request you by name, and for a brief shining period, you bring not just pride to your family, but hope that the lineage may survive another generation. By your early 30s, you reach a height few taikomochi ever see. Your name circulates through the pleasure district like a seasonal wind, predictable, expected, desired. Book him early, patrons warn each other. He sets the tone of the night. You are the daimyo's main request when they need a room softened before negotiations. You're invited to the estates of wealthy merchants when factions quarrel, as your stories neutralize anger more effectively than a mediator. You speak with precision, move with confidence, and your mere arrival drains tension from the air. Your kimono is one of fine Chiraman silk, a high-quality, textured weave. Tea houses seat you in private rooms. You command favors now. Small jobs for your cousins, leniency for a struggling neighbor, an introduction for your father, who once abandoned the profession, but now watches you with a quiet, complicated pride. But the triumph is bittersweet. You know how much it cost you to reach this point. Your childhood, your freedom, and a lifetime of molding yourself into whatever the elite needed in the moment. You are celebrated, yes, but only because you erased every part of yourself that did not serve the art. And then, in the middle of this glittering prime, your grandfather dies. The man who shaped you, broke you, built you, gone. The peak of your career becomes a peak you must stand on alone, with no elder to witness the glory he forced you to chase. For those years, you are an artist of consequence, perhaps the last truly great one your lineage will ever produce. Your family cremates your grandfather and buries the urn. It is at that same time your wife gives birth. It is a boy. You name him after your grandfather, hoping that he'll also inherit the love your grandfather had for the art. You plan to teach him all about his lineage when he's older. But for now, duty calls. You go back to work as that is all you've ever known. And that is when you start to hear whispers. You hear that in the cheaper tea houses, the ones that could never afford a seasoned taikomochi, proprietors had begun hiring women. Young, soft-voiced, dressed in bright colors. At first, the rumor makes you scoff. Women? Performing? In your world, the arts have always been a masculine discipline. Strategic conversation, political humor, subtle performance. You assume this trend will vanish like all the others. But it doesn't. By your late 30s, you start encountering Maiko, apprentice performers weaving through the lesser pleasure quarters. They carry borrowed shamisen, giggle too freely, bow too deeply. You believe they look like children pretending to be refined. Yet within a year, their presence spreads. First in the margins, then into respectable tea houses, then into places you once considered your domain. Their style is new, lighter, flirtatious, more fashionable. They sing fresh songs that suit the rising merchant class, men who want entertainment, not political wit. Softness, not subtlety. The urban ideal of iki, or stylish chic, evolves to favor delicacy over cleverness, and female geisha embody that shift perfectly. Yes, they call themselves geishas too. You begin noticing it in your client's eyes, the tilt, the wandering, the curiosity. Patrons who once relied on your ability to guide the mood now murmur about fresh faces and a different kind of charm. Even the okia, or lodge house owners, once fiercely protective of male geisha prestige, start calculating the costs and benefits of this new workforce. Something fundamental tilts beneath your feet. A structure you once believed unshakable, your rightful inheritance, suddenly feels fragile. You soon realize that your prime might not end because you have faded, but because the world has decided to move on. By your 40s, the shift is unmistakable. Bookings thin, not abruptly, but like a lantern going out. Patrons who once sought your counsel on political tensions or merchant rivalries now want flirtation, lightness, and the public novelty of being entertained by women. A male geisha. That is what they call you now. They add a prefix to yours and call them geisha. You, who were once a symbol of sophistication, are now a conversation piece at best, an outdated ornament at worst. Female geisha adapt effortlessly to new tastes. Their songs are brighter, their dances quicker, their presence easier for clients who want entertainment without layers of wit or political nuance. Meanwhile, your strengths, long-form storytelling, elegant restraint, razor-edged humor meant for samurai courts, no longer convert into quick coins. Soon, tea house owners begin hearing odd requests. Bring someone like him, just for fun. You are no longer hired for mastery, but as a curiosity. Your okia tries to soften the blow, gently suggesting you modernize your act. You attempt it. Shorter jokes, broader expressions, exaggerated gestures. You even try adding a touch of flirtation, though it feels like performing with someone else's face. The audience senses the falseness, and their polite smiles sting more than open rejection. Your art hasn't worsened. The world has simply decided it wants something else. Just when you think it couldn't get any worse, the warnings you overheard as a child finally take shape. Back then, elders whispered that the Tokugawa shogunate, ever hungry for order and taxation, watched the pleasure districts like hawks. Now the bureaucracy sharpens its feathers. New sumptuary laws, which are restrictions on luxury and professions, and official registries that license entertainers, begin distinguishing performers with chilling precision. Female geisha are now neatly categorized as legitimate, taxable, controllable artists. Their ranks grow, their rules clarify, and their place in society becomes official. But male geisha, your own profession, are quietly pushed into administrative oblivion. Forms are rewritten, categories tightened. Male entertainers are reclassified as miscellaneous workers, servants, errand boys, or even folded under menial labor titles like bath attendants or cleaners. On paper, your craft has ceased to exist. What stings is how mundane the death is. Not a confrontation, not a scandal, just ink on a form. The presence of female geisha gives the government the perfect rationale. After all, why regulate men when women already fill the role more cleanly, more profitably? You personally still receive invitations. Your reputation cushions the blow. But you can see the extinction happening in real time. Younger male performers are rejected from tea house registries outright. Some are told to try kabuki instead. Others are told to find labor work. Many quit. When you go to sign up for a seasonal license, the clerk squints at your profession as if it's a joke. And then you realize that all of Japan has turned its back on your profession. By your late 40s, the world that once needed you now mistakes you for everything but what you are. The districts still house kagama, or male prostitutes, and wakashu, and many clients, especially wealthy merchants hungry for novelty, no longer bother to distinguish art from flesh. This is why, as bookings dry up, you watch several of your peers slip into the shadows of the pleasure economy, not because they want to, but because survival has corners that dignity cannot inhabit. You look at them with quiet sorrow. You cannot blame them. Hunger bends spines harder than shame ever will. But you refuse. Not because you are noble, because you are stubborn. Because the art you inherited has rules, boundaries, and a moral spine. If you cross that line, the last remnants of the dream your grandfather sold you will collapse for good. Yet every refusal shrinks your income further, drying out your roster of patrons until only a handful remain. Your bitterness grows, but so does your fear. Your son is no longer a bundle in your arms. He's 15 now, so you train him hard. You must outperform the Geico, you tell him. You must be sharper, faster, more refined. It's the only way. What you don't admit is the truth. You're not just training him to succeed. You're training him to survive a world that no longer wants men like you at all. For the next few years, your name still flickers in the district, but it is a dying lantern. Your patrons, once powerful, sharp-minded men, are now stooped elders who remember you more out of nostalgia than desire. The new generation of merchants and officials don't even recognize your art name when it's spoken aloud. To them, you're an artifact, a remnant, a man past his season. Money thins. The tea house mistress quietly suggests smaller rooms. You sell off an extra kimono, then a lacquered fan, then the last servant, bowing with an understanding you cannot bear to acknowledge. Your son watches every cut. At 16, he stands beside you during practice and sees the cracks, sees that your technique is perfect, but the world no longer cares. He hears the neighbors whisper that men like you are finished. At 18, he tallies household accounts and realizes you are surviving month to month. Barely. So when he turns 19, he makes his choice. He puts the fan down. He sets the drum aside. He tells you, too softly, too politely, that he will not continue. He chooses work with certainty and coin, a laborer's job in the docks, or a clerk's desk in a merchant office. Anything that feeds a family without needing applause. He returns the little stipend an old patron once gave him for training. He bows low, apologizing not for disobedience, but for breaking your dream of continuity. The rejection wound is deeper than poverty or obscurity. Your son walks away from the lineage, and for the first time you realize your art may end with you. You never recover from the realization. Maybe it was the grief, or age has finally stilled your body. You become bedridden and depressed. Your breathing is thin. Your hands tremble. You can no longer walk well as your knees ache from decades of kneeling. Your voice cracks on notes that once silenced a room. You can no longer perform. You live now in your son's home, a quieter place, practical and plain, without the lacquered shine of the old okia. Most days you lie in bed repeating memories like old prayers, the daimyo who once laughed at your joke, the banquet where your timing won a political favor, the nights of applause that shook your blood like wine. The contrast of the past to the present makes you wonder how unforgiving the future will be to your kind. Then one day, you get an epiphany. If the world won't acknowledge you, you'll acknowledge yourself. You tell your son to get you a scholar. You commission him to write about your accomplishments as you narrate. For the next month, you narrate like a man possessed as your health starts to fail you. On the day you finish your narration, you feel peace for the first time in a while. That day, you die quietly, in a futon that is not the one you once slept in after triumphant banquets, but a humble mat in your son's house. You left strict instructions for your story to spread all over Japan. You believe that the world will remember your impact. But your son doesn't think so. He believes that for once in your life, you shouldn't be remembered as a geisha, even if it's in death. So the world doesn't remember. It never intended to. The biography you treasured becomes a keepsake for your son. It becomes a story he tells his own children. Your grandfather used to perform for lords. Nothing more. Centuries later, male geisha exist only in textbooks and obscure museum plaques. Tourists ask guides about geisha, meaning women. Always women. The female line becomes Japan's global icon. The male line becomes a footnote erased by fashion, bureaucracy, and time. The art you dedicated your life to becomes a historical curiosity. And your name, once said with respect in smoky banquet rooms, fades into dust. But I wonder, what would have happened if your biography was published? Would you have been immortal? I guess we'll never know.